There is a curse in Hollywood. It is quiet, it is expensive, and it has killed more legends on screen than any studio would ever admit. They call it the biopic curse. The formula is always the same: highlight the hits, skip the hurt, polish the pain until it shines like a Grammy, and deliver a movie that tells you nothing you didn't already know. Right now, Hollywood is racing to complete the most ambitious music biopic ever attempted. The story of Michael Jackson. A man who was not just a pop star but a phenomenon, a paradox, and a ghost that still haunts every stage in the world. But here is the problem. If they only show the moonwalk and miss the man, if they show the glove but never the burn, if they celebrate the king and ignore the prisoner, he became, this film will fail. Today, we go deep into the vault. 10 specific, haunting, and essential scenes that the biopic must confront head-on. Not for controversy. Not for clicks. But because the truth is always more powerful than the myth. I am Frank John, your host, and you are watching The Legend Vault. Here, we give you nothing but the absolute truth, backed by facts. If you want to witness our newest deep dive episodes and unlock the secrets of history, step into the vault right now. Hit that subscribe button and claim your key. Let's dive in. 1968. Gary, Indiana. A steel mill town. Modest homes, big dreams crammed into small rooms. A 10-year-old boy steps forward onto a community stage, takes the microphone and sings "Who's Loving You?" Not like a child performing. Like an old soul crying out. The audience does not understand what they are witnessing. How could they? They are watching the birth of the most gifted entertainer the world will ever produce, and he is still small enough to fit in his father's shadow. This is scene 1. And the biopic must open here, not with the spectacle, but with the raw, trembling, unpolished truth of a boy who felt music the way most people feel pain. Before the lights. Before the albums. Before the world knew his name, Michael was simply a child who sang like his heart was already breaking. Fast forward to May 16, 1983. The Motown 25th Anniversary Special. Michael Jackson takes the stage. The crowd knows what to expect: a legend performing. What they do not expect is the moment that shifts the Earth's axis. One glide. One impossible, gravity-defying, human logic-defying glide backward across that stage. The moonwalk. Fred Astaire called the next day and told him it was the greatest dancing he had ever seen. Fred Astaire, the man who invented cinematic dance as we know it. The biopic must capture not just the move but the meaning. The moonwalk wasn't choreography. It was a declaration. Michael was telling the world, "I exist beyond what you thought was possible." 1982, Thriller. Not just an album. A seismic event that restructured the entire music industry. 7 #1 singles. 66 million copies sold. A record that, to this day, has never been equaled. But the biopic cannot frame Thriller only as triumph. It must show what that perfection cost. The sleepless nights, the obsessive rewrites, the screaming arguments with producers who couldn't hear what Michael heard in his head. The relentless, crushing, magnificent burden of being the standard against which all others would forever be measured. Greatness is never free. And Michael Jackson paid a price most of us will never comprehend. January 27, 1984. A Pepsi commercial shoot at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. Pyrotechnics malfunction. Michael's scalp catches fire. The cameras keep rolling for several agonizing seconds before anyone stops it. Most biopics skip this scene. They cut away too quickly, too politely, too carefully. That is a mistake, a profound one. Because that fire did not just burn his scalp. It lit a fuse of physical and emotional pain that would burn for the rest of his life. It introduced him to prescription painkillers during a time when no one around him had the courage to say stop. This is the turning point. The invisible fracture. The exact moment the invincible star became a fragile human. The biopic has an obligation to stand in that fire with him. People forget, they remember the moonwalk. They remember the glove. But they forget that Michael Jackson was also one of the most brilliant business minds of his generation. In 1985, while the music industry was still celebrating Thriller, Michael made a move that left everyone speechless. He purchased the ATV music publishing catalog, which included the rights to over 250 Beatles songs for $47.5 million. Paul McCartney, his friend, his collaborator, had advised him years earlier, always invest in publishing. Michael listened, and then he outbid the very people who taught him the lesson. This was not arrogance. This was a chess move of historic proportions. The biopic must show the room where the deal was signed and the quiet, self-assured genius who signed it. And then there was the war no one could see coming. The war inside his own body. Vitiligo is a medical condition. It causes the immune system to attack and destroy the cells responsible for skin pigmentation. It is chronic, it is unpredictable, and it is completely beyond a person's control. Michael Jackson was diagnosed, and he fought this condition while under the most powerful global microscope in the history of entertainment. Every change in his appearance was mocked, speculated about, weaponized. The biopic must address vitiligo with the honesty and dignity it deserves, showing not a man changing his identity out of vanity, but a human being losing a part of his physical self while the entire world pointed and laughed. That is not a sideshow. That is a tragedy. Neverland was not a mansion. It was not a theme park. It was not a publicity stunt. Neverland was a childhood recaptured. Michael Jackson grew up on a stage. He was 6 years old the first time he performed professionally. He was never allowed to simply be a child, to play, to fail, to waste an afternoon for no reason at all. So, he built Neverland. A world that gave him everything his childhood never could. The biopic must show him there, not performing, not posing, but sitting quietly on that carousel at 2 a.m, utterly alone with the one version of himself the world never truly knew. The boy who just needed to play. 1985. The We Are the World session. A room full of the greatest artists alive: Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, Ray Charles. And in the corner, between takes, Michael Jackson sits by himself beatboxing, not singing, beatboxing. He is mapping an entire orchestral arrangement in his voice. He does not read music in the conventional sense, he hears architecture. He builds cathedrals out of rhythm and instinct. This quiet, private, obsessive moment of creation is the real Michael Jackson. The one who chased a sound that only he could hear and somehow always caught it. The biopic must put us in that room. By the 1990s, the headlines had grown louder than the music. Wacko Jacko, a nickname the British tabloids invented, A two-word cruelty that became the world's shorthand for a man they had decided to stop understanding. Michael Jackson was tried in the court of public opinion long before he ever entered a legal courtroom. Allegations, investigations, settlements, acquittals, each one loudly announced, and the acquittals quietly forgotten. The biopic cannot skip this decade. It cannot sanitize it. It must stand in the middle of the hurricane and show us what it feels like to be the most famous, most scrutinized, most judged human being on the planet and still get up and try to create, because he did. He kept creating, through all of it. In his final years, Michael Jackson built one last fortress, not of glass and steel, not of fame and platinum records, but of anonymity for his children. He covered their faces, he kept them off stages. He refused to let the world's obsession with him consume the people he loved most. A man who had spent his entire life being watched spent his last years desperately trying to make sure his children would never know that feeling. That is not eccentricity, that is love, fierce, protective, aching love. The biopic has one final job: to bridge the infinite gap between the performer and the soul. Between the king of pop and the father who just wanted his children to be free. Jaafar Jackson carries a weight that no actor in Hollywood history has ever carried before. He is not simply playing a character. He is portraying his uncle. A man his family loved, mourned, and still grieves. He must find, inside himself, the 10-year-old boy in Gary who sang like his soul was bleeding and the isolated father in his final years who just wanted peace. He must moonwalk, he must weep, he must survive the Pepsi fire, close the Beatles deal, beatbox orchestras, and stand trial in the media's court and never once let you see the seams. We are rooting for him, but we are also watching, closely. Because Michael Jackson deserves the full truth on that screen, not a highlights reel dressed up as a biopic. Legends, I have 2 questions for you before we close the vault. Question 1. Which of these 10 scenes are you most afraid they will leave out of the biopic? The Pepsi fire? The vitiligo truth? The isolated father protecting his children? Let me know in the comments below, because your answer tells us something about what you believe Michael Jackson really was. Question 2. Do you believe Jaafar Jackson can truly capture the pain in Michael's eyes? Not the performance, the pain, the thing that lived behind every note he ever sang? Open the discussion below. The Vault wants to hear from you. History is being remade and the Vault is watching. Thank you for joining me today on the Legend Vault, where we give you nothing but the absolute truth, backed by facts, backed by respect, backed by a genuine love for the legends who shaped our world. If this episode opened something in you, share it. The story of Michael Jackson is too important to stay buried in a vault. Until next time, stay legendary. This is Frank John, signing off.